Episode 19 of Sir Ulric Hosts Money Matters. I have the privilege of bringing on, of course, another friend of mine in the Bitcoin space. And he was a part of me getting into the content creation from the get-go. This is Opti from Simply Bitcoin. Bro, it's been a long time coming. I'm glad you're on the show. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful, bro. I'm glad you got me on here. Like you said, man, it was good hanging out with you in Nashville. We had some fun. You know, Sir Ulric is a gentleman in real life, which I think we could say few Bitcoiners really are who they are online. And Sir Ulric is one of them. But man, I'm doing great. It's Saturday. Beautiful day. You know, Bitcoin's running, Bitcoin's working. Everything's going as planned. It feels good. Life's great. I think this is something we always say. It's like once you're on the Bitcoin standard, there's really nothing to complain about. Like life's wonderful. I can't complain. I could keep going on about just how good life is, but we're here to talk Bitcoin.
Oh, we're here to talk Bitcoin, but we're also here to talk about you. And part of your persona in the Bitcoin world is your bullish disposition. So I gotta ask you, before we get started, is everything really good for Bitcoin?
Well, the public response is, of course, everything is good for Bitcoin. I truly fundamentally believe that the world needs Bitcoin. So everything is obviously bullish for Bitcoin. And really, one of the things that I like the most is, I don't know, the psychological difference that Bitcoin makes in your life. And once you see the difference between Bitcoin and the fiat world, it's like, man, everything is bullish for Bitcoin. Though, more of like on the back end, there is some things that I am concerned about that's happening in the space, which, being a paranoid Bitcoiner, always thinking about the game theory and the attack vectors, like there is some stuff that does concern me when I think about Bitcoin. Sometimes I'm, oscillating between just being completely white-pilled and black-pilled. But overall, I would say everything is good for Bitcoin. And even the attacks on Bitcoin is good for Bitcoin. As much as Nassim Taleb has become an anti-Bitcoin derangement figure, I think it's very good to think of Bitcoin in terms of anti-fragility, like being anti-fragile. These attacks make Bitcoin stronger, and making sure that we're vigilant and understanding what is actually playing out and not really just sniffing our own farts is what's going to ensure that Bitcoin does continue to propagate into the future. And so, yes, obviously everything is good for Bitcoin, but I also think it's important that we aren't just kind of, how do I say it? Like we're not just, I said it earlier, like sniffing our own farts, as long as we're not just constantly saying like, oh, Bitcoin's going to win. All we got to do is just let Bitcoin do its thing. I'm starting to kind of not waver, but flip on that, where I think it's very important for us Bitcoiners to stay vigilant, to make sure that we are active, we are getting involved, and just not thinking that, oh, just me stacking sats and taking it in the cold storage, like Bitcoin's going to do its thing, I don't have to do anything. Because fundamentally, Bitcoin is about people, and it's about the people involved in Bitcoin that are actually going to change the trajectory of humanity. And so, yes, everything is good for Bitcoin, but I also think that there's still a lot of work to be done. And that's why, we do what we do, and we constantly are trying to put our hat in the rink and make sure that things are actively and actually going towards the direction that we think it's going. So, yes, it is good for Bitcoin, but also I'm not naively bull-tarded. I am bull-tarded, obviously, but I'm always thinking about, okay, are my fundamentals correct? Is where the industry going for the best of the Bitcoin network? Are we getting co-opted? So I think even in that front, it's still always good for Bitcoin, because you got to think about the attack vectors and the game theory going on, and understanding that as Bitcoiners and as a network, Bitcoin is fundamentally changing society. And so we got to keep our head on the swivel and understand that the people in power are obviously going to figure out, or at least try to figure out, ways to co-opt this thing, this movement that we got going on. And so I keep thinking of ways of like, okay, is my first principles correct? And am I actually spreading the correct message out there so that we don't find ourselves in golden handcuffs?
Well said. And so you talked about, us doing our work, and, Simply Bitcoin, they're definitely doing their work. You and Nico, Rustin, the whole team. You guys have grown in follow, in product, in personnel over the years. Can you give me a synopsis of your career with them, from where you started with the brand to now your responsibilities?
Yeah, 100%. So originally, going all the way back, I got in Bitcoin 2017. I paid my dues like everyone else, tried to understand what was going on in the network, came in as green as anyone could possibly be in the Bitcoin space, not understanding anything. Obviously got caught up in the 2017 bull run and came for the gains. And then as I started to try to understand what Bitcoin was exactly, I got to the center of the Tootsie Pop and I realized like, okay, it's Bitcoin only. And then part of that journey, I think it was around like 2020 when we had, the lockdown of the world, was on some Zoom calls with friends and we were just meeting every week. And then I think it was a couple months later, one of my friends was basically like, hey, you guys should start like a radio call-in show where people could come in and ask their questions about Bitcoin. And me and one of my friends, who you guys probably know, Nick Can't Mine, who's now head of news at Bitcoin Magazine, we started this project called Bitcoin Kindergarten. And a lot of really influential people came out of that. We're all basically the same era of Bitcoiners. And we started our own podcast. It was like a every weekly meetup, but we kind of garnered like a community out of that, which Simply Bitcoin originally came out of. And Nico and Phil were originally basically just friends that would hang out with us and we would just rant about stuff and hang out and just talk about Bitcoin and where everything is going. And it's the same thing we do every day now with Simply Bitcoin, but it was just like the first iteration. And I kept that going it's still technically alive, guys. So if you're a BK alumni or BK family, they're always yelling at me about like, when you're going to do the next one. It's just all the work that's mounted up with Simply Bitcoin that it's just like, I got to focus my energy. Anyways, a year or two after, I think more like 2 years after creating Bitcoin Kindergarten, Nico hit me up at Miami 2022. And he pulled me aside and he's like, yo, bro, it was like, Simply Bitcoin, it was just 2 people at the time. And he pulled me aside. He's like, yo, I want you to join the team. And I want you to just handle the Twitter team. Like, we want to make this to become one of the biggest, best Bitcoin media companies like possible. And I was like, bet, full sold. You didn't have to ask me twice. I just like fully committed to it. And then after a week of trying to like do my normie job and also do the Twitter, I realized that I had to do this full time. Like, if I was going to do it correctly, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. All Bitcoiners, I think we go through this journey where we want to try to find a way to get involved in the Bitcoin space. And I got the opportunity to work with my friends. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Also, if anyone knows my work at Simply Bitcoin, I jokingly always say that I'm a propagandist. I love making Bitcoin propaganda. I love making the signal. And I realized that the legacy media is just propaganda in itself. So I was like, you're giving me a rifle to run up the hill and become a Bitcoin propagandist. Like, I am with that. And then, so after that first week, I just fully committed. I basically quit my fiat job, wasn't making any money. So this is, some signal for everyone out there that tries to do something in Bitcoin. Sometimes you just got to provide the value and take the risk. And having Bitcoin as a savings vehicle, something that you've been stockpiling up, that you've been holding, you're able to take more risk. And so you realize, hey, what do I want to do with my life? And I realized, hey, I want to make Bitcoin propaganda. Like, I want to make Bitcoin signal, Bitcoin media. And then, 3-4 months, years later, if you guys understand or know any of the lore of Simply Bitcoin, it basically fell apart almost. It almost fell apart. And I was like, it's not going to end on my watch. And, I just filled into the co-host role. And it was literally just me and Nico then. And slowly but surely, we started to add more content creators like Rustin. We tried to figure out how to really up the ante with our show. We transitioned from pre-recorded to a live show. And it's just a constant iteration of just like, okay, what do we need to do to become one of the best Bitcoin media companies in the space and really spread that Bitcoin signal and hope and the ideas of freedom and self-sovereignty and, a lot of anti-state rhetoric and all that good stuff. And so now we have a team of I think a little under 12, mainly some editors, a Twitter team, which is, becoming one of the best news aggregators on Twitter, where we're just constantly updating people on what we think is the best signal and what people should be focusing on. And it's usually based down to the simple idea, kind of our motto on the show is like, we will be your guides through the separation of state and money. And this is what we find ourselves. This is where we find ourselves right now. Like, I know if people are maybe new to the Bitcoin space, I think we all come to the space with like an itching in the back of our brain of like, there's something wrong in the world. And the legacy media and the powers that be are obviously incentivized to continue to spin their narrative. And so it's our duty as Bitcoiners, what you do, what all our other content creation friends do, is to basically show a different angle of what's going on. And that's what we constantly try to do is like, okay, this is what we see. And if you see the same problem that we see, then hopefully you come and hang out with us and try to keep yourself informed and make sure that we aren't finding ourselves in this dystopian, totalitarian, authoritarian world that we seem to be trending towards. And so our goal is literally just to get more people to like Bitcoin, more people to get involved in Bitcoin, because I think we found a little niche here where we realize there's so much good Bitcoin content. But a lot of Bitcoin content creators don't understand that fundamentally it is also about entertaining the people watching your show, making it fun, making it light. Because if you're just watching Bitcoin content, a lot of times, at least I know when I was like, it gets a little doom and gloomy sometimes. You're like, oh my gosh, everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Like, what can we actually do? And so our goal is just to be, the daily hangout where everyone comes, they hang out with us, they get entertained, they get informed, and they understand that there's more people like us. I was going to say more psychopaths, but I think that meme's run its course at this point. There's more Bitcoiners and more freedom-minded people out there, but we're all in different pockets, just like Bitcoin nodes, like nodes are everywhere on planet Earth. And I fundamentally believe that we were born for this moment and we are all geographically separated for a reason, because we need to spread that signal. We need to be the light bearers. We need to be, the light in the darkness and show people that, hey, there is another way. And so as much as I really love the like Bitcoin Citadel memes, and hopefully one day I end up in my own Bitcoin Citadel, I think it's very important for us to ensure that we are geographically separated, that we are decentralized, covering planet Earth, and just constantly being a node in the network as ourselves, like as a personal node in the network. It's our duty to spread the message and hopefully wake more people up, because I do think this is a great awakening that we're seeing right now. Because I have one fundamental thesis that most of history is just a long story of what's the best way to organize humanity. And we've gone from, pure monarchs to feudalism to communism to capitalism, and they're all just different ways of organizing humanity. And I think the trend, or at least, I hope the trend is from, state control, from the collective control over society to individual control over yourself, individual sovereignty. And I think the trend is moving towards individual sovereignty and more people taking responsibility over their own lives and figuring out ways how we can cooperate and coordinate with other humans, because that's all society is just how do I live amongst 8 billion people? What's the best way to organize humanity's resources so that we can collectively, I even hate using the word collectively because of how it's been tinted amongst the collectivists out there, but how as a humanity we can organize ourselves so that everyone can prosper and everyone can work and do what they do best, and make sure that society doesn't move backwards. And I fundamentally think that it's moving towards individual freedom. As we can see now, the state apparatus is crumbling. the fiat control over humanity is also crumbling. It's teetering on the edge of explosion, as we saw last week with, all the crazy stuff going on with Japan. So it does feel like we might be in the final innings of this, movement. And then obviously the gradually then suddenly meme of it going into the Bitcoin space. But I still think there's a lot of time here, and we'll probably be doing this for a long time as most people try to wake up and figure out what is actually happening in the world. And I am convinced that Bitcoiners, once you understand the fundamentals, the first principles of Bitcoin, you're able to look at the world through a new lens, and you're able to predict where things are going. And I think it's upon us as Bitcoiners to continue to spread that signal, continue to educate our friends and family, continue to educate ourselves so that we don't get blindsided by something out of our control. Obviously, there's a lot of things out of our control, but I think Bitcoiners have very powerful predictive capabilities because of our first principles, because we are not blinded by the fiat economists of the world and the powers that be, and we can actually see how the world works, via proof of work. Then I think we're going to be in a very powerful position, not only financially, but mentally and spiritually and physically. And that's the stuff that gets me the most excited is just how Bitcoin changes you. And that's why I'm so optimistic. Like, this is why I fundamentally have changed my perspective of the world, because there is still hope in the world. And I know if you're in the fiat system, it's nihilistic, pessimistic, it's, doom and gloom, but there is a fix here. And obviously that's why we call ourselves Simply Bitcoin. Like, it's simply Bitcoin. Fix the money, fix the world. It's probably one of the best memes in the Bitcoin space.
I got some goosebumps there, man. I got some goosebumps. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that, like, I would sit there and watch Simply Bitcoin and see, like, oh wow, like Opti going, where's my DJ horn? It's like,
oh, there you go.
I gotta get my Rodecaster set up because I don't have any of that. I have the bare minimum. Let me just get my voice out. You got the DJ horn for me. I'm good. Show's over, guys. No,
it's done. It's a wrap.
So you called yourself Opti, okay, and you eternal optimist. Your name is completely Optimist Fields on Twitter. You have this baby in the sand on the beach. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's a reference. Maybe Opti is a reference to Transformers, Optimus Prime. I got to know, where are all these images and symbols coming from to formulate who you present yourself in the Twitterverse?
Okay, cool. Well, I'll start first with my profile picture on Twitter. It is me. That is me as a baby in the sand. And I forget when it was. It was like 2020 or something. I remember Bitstein, and it was kind of going around on Twitter that, like, a lot of big profile Bitcoiners were kind of using baby pictures because we were, Bitcoiners can be very toxic on the internet. And kind of the idea was like, okay, let's put baby pictures as our profile pictures, because then the message might get heard better, because it's like, who's going to look at a baby and be like, oh, this guy's an asshole, or sorry, I didn't check whether I can cuss, so I'll minimize the cussing.
Oh,
but
no, other people have done worse.
Okay, yeah. I try not to cuss too much. My mother still yells at me about my bad mouth. But anyways, I added the baby picture because it like that. I'm always trying to figure out a way to get our message heard by more people. And a lot of people have a certain perspective of Bitcoin, and they have already made their minds about Bitcoin. So on Twitter, I just added the baby picture, and I was like, in the picture, it's literally me on the beach. I grew up at the beach. I don't even remember the first time I was at the beach. I don't remember how, like, learning how to surf or how to swim. I'm a water person, I don't know if you can tell, but, like, I'm kind of hairless. And the family joke was always that I'm basically a dolphin in my last life because I love the water.
Darker than me. So you get a lot of sun. You get a lot of sun, right?
Yeah.
On.
So it was a picture of me with a cup, just like playing with the water and pouring out just like sand and water. And when I was thinking of this, I was like, okay, at that time is when, as most Bitcoiners, I did have my shitcoin phase in early 2018 while I was learning. And then I made the fundamental blessed decision of just like, okay, I need to figure out what Bitcoin is before I'm able to really understand what all these other projects are. And at that time, once you get to the Bitcoin bottom of the rabbit hole, which is all the content we're making, you realize like, oh, wait, there's nothing in shitcoin land. Like, it's gambling. And I don't like to gamble. I'm just here to save in something that cannot get destroyed. I literally could barely save like $300 in, paper money before Bitcoin because it would just burn a hole in my pocket. I think instinctually I understood that fiat was losing value over time, and like being a part of the rat race, I was like, man, like, how do I get out of that position? And then I found Bitcoin and I realized, just stack sats, stay humble, never sell your Bitcoin, all the memes that we all understand. So I did a picture and I was just dumping out all the shit coins that I had at the time. And I put like a little Bitcoin logo. At first, I put the Bitcoin logos on my eyes. And then the laser eye meme came out. And so I just swapped that out and put laser eyes on it. And now it's just kind of became my brand. Personally, I get so confused on Twitter when people change their profile pictures because like I don't remember people's names, but I definitely remember people's profile picture. So now it's just like my brand. Like I just stuck with it. Like if you know me on Twitter, the little baby on the beach with the, cup pouring out the shit coins. And so that's where the profile picture came from. But the name Optimist Fields, so before Bitcoin, hence why I have all the gear here. I used to make music. I really loved to produce music. I wanted to be a producer. I taught myself how to play piano. And I guess maybe it's like a continuation of the DYOR meme of like, do your own research, teach yourself, proof of work. I always joke that I think I've been a Bitcoiner a long time before I ever even found Bitcoin, because all of the Bitcoin messages really resonated with me of like, don't trust authority, teach yourself, personal sovereignty. Before I even learned any of these memes, I've kind of always been on that same tip. And so I tried to make music for a long time. I taught myself how to make music. I did it from like 18 to like 28 before, like right when I found Bitcoin is basically when I found a whole new obsession from producing music and recording friends. I really wanted to be an audio engineer in my, my early adulthood from 18 to like 28. I just love music. I love recording music. I love music. And that's why I had all the gear in the first place to do Bitcoin media, is because I had microphones. I already knew how to work all this stuff. And so like, I think it was an easy transition from making music to just
time out real quick. So that RE20 that you got in front of you.
No, this is new.
Brand?
This is new.
Whose idea was that?
Well, this was Nico's idea.
Okay,
so we realized when we were on the show that our audio sounded a little different. Like I used to have a SM7B, and that's literally legacy from making music before. I love the SM7B. It's if you know anything about microphones, the SM7 is like known as the Michael Jackson mic. And so I bought that back in the day because I was trying to figure out how to make my recording sound better, make the vocals sound better. And so I had the SM7B. But fast forward, we realized that our audio sounded a little differently. So this one kind of has a little more punch and a little more bite to it, whereas the SM7B kind of is a little more like relaxed and radio DJ, which kind of leaned into my original brand. Anyways, as you know, Opti, the radio DJ with the horns, But anyways, so in my early days, right when I found Bitcoin, roughly around like 2017, 2018, when I was learning, I'm a huge fan of MF Doom. I don't know if you know MF Doom. He's considered as like your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. He's, underground, early 2000s rapper. And he wore a mask, and I should have planned for this. So where I have the actual mask in my other room, so maybe I'll pull it out while we're rolling this out. But one of the things he would do is he would kind of create alter egos for different messages. And so at the time, I really wanted to create like this alter ego of like something that is hopeful, that kind of like not spits in the face of popular rap music, because it's like the beginning of the mumble rap era, and I was like, I'm a 90s boom bap golden era hip hop kind of guy. I'm like, rap's going downhill, man. And so I wanted to create this character called Optimist Fields. And the funny story of where I got the name Optimist Fields is I was working a job I hated, physical labor. I was up early. I just like didn't like it. I was just so like burnt out. I just absolutely hated it. And felt like there was no hope, and I just didn't have another opportunity. And one morning I was going to work, and it was early, and I was pissed off and tired, and I didn't drink coffee then yet. So, maybe that was part of it. And I was thinking on this idea of like creating a character. Like, I need an alter ego. Like, what's the name of this alter ego? And I was driving, and as I'm thinking of this, the sun's rising, and I look to my right just so mad. And there was a park called Optimist Fields. And I was like, that's the name. Like, that's the idea that I want to continue to proliferate. That yes, things may be bad, but there is Optimist Fields there. Like, there is a field where you can walk on and build a new future. Like, there is hope, and you just have to search for it. And so Optimist Fields just instantly clicked for me. And I was like, that's the name of the artist, the project that I want to make. It's Optimist Fields. Like, I'm going to take on the moniker of Optimist Fields. And that was before I found Bitcoin. And then I jumped on Twitter, after like 2 weeks of finding Bitcoin. And I learned, from like searching on YouTube and, watching Andreas Antonopoulos videos and Google searching, like finding weird Reddit posts. I forget where I saw it, but it basically said, like, if you want to really be a part of the Bitcoin conversation, then you jump on Twitter. And so I never had a Twitter before. I jumped on Twitter, and at first I'm pretty sure I was even using like my original name when I first started it. So, for people trying to dox me, I'm sure you can find that information out there somewhere if you know how Twitter works. And then I, was learning and interacting with people and asking questions and following a lot of really bad accounts. So, a lot of shitcoin accounts. And at the time, they were like the big Bitcoin influencers, but they weren't really Bitcoin only. The Bitcoin only space was still very, very early. It was basically non-existent. There was like 2 podcasts, which was like Marty and Matt Odell and like Stefan Livera. Actually 3. It was Marty and Matt, Stefan Livera. There was, and then Noted, Bitstein, and Pierre Rochard. Like, so I found those podcasts, and I just got obsessed with it. And I listened to everything while I was working. And at some time around that point, I think, I started to learn about like internet privacy and how messed up the world is, and, how much they're tracking all of our digital identities. And I got really scared, the Bitcoin meme of like your OPSEC. Like, it's very important. You never know who's watching and what crazy people are going to do on the internet. And so I had like 300 followers on my original Twitter account. And then I just switched the name to Optimist Fields one night, like on a whim, after really kind of understanding the threats of OPSEC and, operational security, and keeping my identity secret, or rather not secret, but private. And then showing, selectively showing myself to people. And then after I changed the name on Twitter to Optimist Fields, it just kind of took a life of its own. And I think it just kind of resonates with the message of Bitcoin and, the perpetual bull-tardedness and just the optimism that I had before Bitcoin. Like, I used to be a very kind of like angry teenager. I was just mad at the world. I didn't know why I was mad at the world. Again, obviously I was born to be a Bitcoiner. I felt the problem, but I couldn't articulate the problem. And then throughout, my spiritual journey and my growth to becoming a man, I just realized, like, man, it's so much better to be optimistic and have a positive perspective on life, and always looking for the silver lining. And so I just pretty much psy myself into constantly being optimistic about life. But anyways, when I added it to my Twitter with the Bitcoin message, it was just like a, match made in heaven, where like Optimist Fields, like, just stay perpetually optimistic about the future. I think it resonated with people. And now it's just, again, like, just took on a life of its own, and everyone knows me. Like, I think more people know me as Optimist Fields than like my God-given birth name. Cause now the things we're doing is, taking on a life of its own. It's going worldwide. Like, I have friends around the world now because of Bitcoin, because of Twitter, that, everyone calls me Opti. Like, I'm Optimist Fields now. And actually, a funny story, when I was in Nashville, I went to the Bitcoin after party, like the final party, And one of my friends, Katie the Russian, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her in the audience, but we are kind of a part of this original group that would meet during the lockdown of the world that we called Dirtbag Fridays. Every Friday we would have a Zoom meeting with one of our friends, Al's Lacrosse, which again, some Bitcoin lore for people. And we'd meet every Friday, and the world seemed to be going to shit. And we would just meet up and talk about Bitcoin, talk about the world. But anyways, back to the story. Katie the Russian was one of the people that would hang out with us. And you know, I consider her a good friend. And I saw her at the after party, and she jokingly said, she's like, Opti, like, you really are Optimist Fields now. Like you're happier, your life's better. Like you really lived up to the name. And that's really what it is now. It's like, I'm trying to just live up to what my name means. And even again, it's kind of a Nipsey Hussle quote. He's got a line somewhere where he goes like, you know, Nip Hustle, like I'm just trying to live up every day to what my name means. And so I'm just, you know, I'm really just trying to not only facilitate love in the world and positivity in the world, but also just constantly live up to what this name means to me and hopefully everyone else. It's like there is a better world, and we can build it. And so we're going to build those optimistic fields with Bitcoin, with the community, and with all of the Bitcoin businesses out there. So it kind of morphed throughout the years of like staying optimistic and staying true to the name and the moniker or the stage name, how or pseudonym, however you want to frame it. And now it's just like a reminder of like, you got to stay optimistic. Like it's just a way better way to live your life is always being positive. Like positivity will win. This is how we win this game, is in the face of all the negativity in the fiat world, positivity will win. And we're looked at as the crazy guys because we're positive. We're living a good life. We're happy. Life's doing well. And everyone's like, how are you so happy? And you're like, man, you know, life's good. Like I'm saving, I'm working towards something. I got purpose. I'm healthier than ever. I'm fitter than ever. You know, like everything works good once you work from first principles. So yeah, long-winded story, the origin story of Optimist Fields.
Drop the horns. Yeah. It's so funny. The divine intervention of you discovering your name.
Yeah.
You know, in the middle of your adult life, you know, in your still forming who you are.
Yeah.
But like you recognize that, and it's like, that's me before you were a Bitcoiner. You know, that's, I don't want to say miraculous, but I will say that's some divine intervention right there. I'm just going to leave it at that. Beautiful story.
Appreciate it.
Again, more goosebumps on that one. I'm so happy to hear that one. I've always been wondering, and so I finally get to ask that in front of all my viewers. So let's talk about Bitcoin for a minute. Again, eternally optimist. Is Bitcoin going up in the next 12 months? Is it going to melt faces? And if it is, why?
Yeah, the TLDR is yes. And I guess, you know, I could do the low-hanging fruit example of the halving cycles. So like the halving cycles, we're obviously in that second leg of the halving cycle, which I think is going to basically have a blow off top from now till like 2025. Of course, the historic meme of usually, you know, 12 to 18 months after the halving is when you get the Bitcoin price to pump. But I did find this post the other day, and I'm trying to find it real quick because it really lays out. Oh, here we go. I don't know if I could share this, but
let me drop it in the comments and I'll try to share it myself.
Okay.
I didn't prepare to have you share something today, but that's okay.
Yeah, let me see. Okay. So I think what we're seeing right now is a perfect storm of macroeconomic factors or whatever you want to call it. Like I think everything is working out exactly as foreseen. And here, wait. Okay, yeah, you're gonna have to do it.
Almost got
and
it.
There's so many things that I think are playing out perfectly in sync to make Bitcoin go absolutely nuclear. And so, yes, I do believe in the next year or so we are going to see an incredible price movement. But this it's a Reddit post, and this really sums up exactly what I've been saying for a long time. and it's very eloquent. And I, you know, if this is on audio for the audio listeners, then I'll just read it out right now. So
Go ahead.
is you know, our Bitcoin post on Reddit, and it goes like, this is why I'm bullish, and it lays out everything, and this is what I've been saying for a long time as well. So world events are coming into place. This has been an absolutely crazy summer so far. So let's get this straight. We have presidential candidates openly talking about Bitcoin as a reserve asset. There are multiple companies that are openly saying they are buying Bitcoin to fix their balance sheet. We've got an economy in the dumps, so we need to cut interest rates in the US. Most of the looming issues with sell-offs, Mt. Gox, Germany, Grayscale, etc., are mostly done with. USA ETFs are booming. Colleges and state funds are buying Bitcoin. Brokers are going to start to tell their clients to buy the US ETFs. And now you're telling me that Japan is not going to raise rates from basically zero until the market settle. So never. They're going to allow this printing shit to happen forever. And the US is going to start the party. Holy fucking shit. If you aren't into Bitcoin by now, you just aren't going to be. The world is blind. And so all of those factors here laid out perfectly in this one Reddit post is why I fundamentally think that we are going to see an incredible price movement towards the end of this year, and most likely all the way into most of 2025. I saw this other meme that I don't have on hand right now that's basically like, from the bottom of the very last leg of the blow off top to the top is usually 800 days. And so if that cycle plays out again, it looks like we might be having 800 days of just pumping. And like, if that's not bullish for you, I don't know what is, or like what you're thinking. Though I do understand the memes of like everyone saying diminishing returns. I'm also very convinced that we're seeing like the billionaire FUD playbook happening right now. Like, I'm fundamentally convinced that nation states and the biggest corporations in the world are trying to manipulate and suppress the Bitcoin price because they want to pack their bags. They realize what game's being played. And I'm not one of these Bitcoiners that think that like Jamie Dimons and Larry Finks of the world are dumb. I think they're incredibly intelligent and they know the game being played, but their incentive is aligned with fiat. And so if you see there's a problem, or Warren Buffett's of the world, like if you see there's a problem in the fiat system, you're going to look for ways to hedge your position in life. And if you also see the writing on the wall that you have to print more money, that the traditional financial world is teetering on the edge of a recession or a Great Depression, or literally outright might blow up on us, you're going to look for alternatives. And this is what we're seeing play out in real time, that everyone is waking up to the fact that, wow, we can't save in dollars. All 8 billion people of us have the same problem. We have nothing to save our value in. And if you are really rich, you do have options like real estate and, you know, art and yachts and whatever, you know, status symbol you're able to buy and pass on and hold your value. But for everyone else, we all have the same problem. We don't have anything to store our value in. And now we are entering, I think, in a new paradigm where Bitcoin is maturing. Like, this is Bitcoin maturing in real time. As much as we may not like the politicians pandering to Bitcoin, as much as we may not like Bitcoin becoming politicized, as much as we are weary of Larry Fink and BlackRock coming into Bitcoin, or banks custodying Bitcoin, and, you know, the SEC and the government trying to figure out ways to regulate Bitcoin, we always knew that we would get to this point where everyone gets attracted to Bitcoin. And I really think, and I hate using this meme because Bitcoiners are always so wrong about it. And I could be wrong. I could, you know, I could eat my words later, but it really does feel like this time is different. Like, things are fundamentally different in the Bitcoin space. Like, the institutions are actively here. We've been hearing that for as long as I've been in Bitcoin. We have nation states adopting Bitcoin. We have, as much as I don't like the ETFs and I call it paper Bitcoin, like, now we have avenues for the biggest liquid capital pools to get into Bitcoin. And now we see Bitcoin on all of the corporate press. Like, we never used to have Bitcoin tickers on you know, any of the financial news outlets in the world, and now we're like the conversation. They really want to kind of relegate us to like the corner of like, oh, you know, you guys with your internet nerd money, like, stay out of here, like, let the adults take care of this. And we're always like, no, like, Bitcoin is the solution. So all of these different factors, I think, are playing out and they're going to make the Bitcoin price explode, because we know the meme of infinity divided by 21 million. All of the capital of the world has the same problem. It is constantly getting debased, and people need to find a way to store that capital long term. Capital preservation is like the fundamental guiding light of anyone that understands anything about business. Is you need to ensure that you have capital to keep going and doing what you're doing. So we're seeing that everyone is waking up to the meme of capital preservation. And now we have all these factors playing out in real time. And this isn't even to account for what I think we're going to see once the price breaks 100K and further, is the the retail FOMO that we saw in 2017. When I got into Bitcoin, it was a play out of the classic meme, like when your shoe shine boys talking about Bitcoin, that's probably when the top is. And it's been 7 years since we've gotten a moment where everyone is talking about Bitcoin. So it's been very easy to kind of disregard Bitcoin the last couple of years, especially the last bull run, because it got neutered at 70K and we all thought it was going to go way higher. A lot of different factors that we can probably point to. But I really do think that with all those different factors of the institutions basically opening themselves up to Bitcoin, the nation state level interest of Bitcoin, the presidential debates over Bitcoin, and then added with what I think we'll see with some crazy retail FOMO, like I think this might go higher than we even think so. And it really goes back to, like, there's a fundamental problem with the traditional financial world. It is broken. The money is broken. And once people wake up to this, it's going to happen very quickly. And if Bitcoin plays out like old cycles, 10, 20 X's are not out of the picture. Yes, it's harder to move the Bitcoin market because it's bigger, but we also got to understand there's bigger players getting into Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is smaller than some of the biggest corporations in America. Like, it's smaller than some of the biggest corporations in the world. And we all know Bitcoin is bigger than any one company. Like, Bitcoin is the new monetary paradigm of the 21st century. And if you add up all of the GDP, all of the currencies of the world, all of the things that people use to store their value, then you start to get an idea of where Bitcoin might go. Right now, we the numbers are something around what is it, like $900 trillion of global assets. So how could you not be bullish? Like, I don't think we're bullish enough in Bitcoin, even though we're always stupidly bull-hearted. It's just like big numbers are hard for the human brain to understand. And of course, I don't want to sell people false dreams, but I fundamentally believe that the world is getting demonetized against Bitcoin. Everything is going to zero against Bitcoin. And we're the lucky few. We're the ones that can usher in this new vanguard. It's like we are the foot soldiers that can rewrite the course of humanity. And like, how does that not make you feel optimistic and bullish about our little role in what is happening? I think a lot of us, I'll dial it back. I was going to say humans, but not to be a misogynist here on Sir Ulric's show, but I think a lot of men are really lacking in purpose. And, we grow up with these stories of like mythological heroes, and we've kind of been beaten to submission where it's like, man, like, I'm just one person. What can I actually do to, change humanity? Like, the Alexander the Greats and the Caesars, like, they died a long time ago. There's nothing that we can do to ever achieve their level of greatness. But I fundamentally believe that as Bitcoiners, as people that understand this, like, we will have a small role in changing the course of humanity. And if that doesn't get you fired up, like, you have no soul left. Like, you need to ignite the fire within you, ignite the light within you, and realize, like, we do have a role here. We can change things. Yes, we are up against the great Leviathan, but like, David took out Goliath, and Bitcoiners and the Bitcoin network is that David. And, or rather, we're David, and Bitcoin is the stone that will take out the Goliath's eye. So, I mean, this is the stuff, like, I could get philosophical and wax about Bitcoin all the time. I try to bring it back down to earth for people and just be like, protect yourself and save in Bitcoin and provide value. But like, yeah, I'm just very hopeful about the future, because I think a world on a hard money standard will improve the lives of every single person, as long as they understand that there is no free lunch and you will have to put in some work. And, you know, it's not a pretty solution. You're not going to get rich overnight, but if you do the work, good things come. It's, you know, it's a very simple, it's even like biblical, you know, like God saves those that save themselves. And so I think this is our Noah's Ark moment. It's like, this is how you protect yourselves against the great theft we've seen in the last 100 years or even longer, you know, for the story of humanity. And you got to put in the work. Like you can make it, but you need to put in the work. You need to have some discipline, some self-sacrifice. And, you know, these are just memes that we've been passed down to humanity throughout the whole history of humanity. Like nothing's changed. Human, what's it? I forget what the meme, but like human hardware, like our brains haven't changed in what? Depending on your timeline, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years, if not just 1,000 years. Like our hardware hasn't changed, but we're constantly updating our software and how we view the world. And I think that's what's happening. Humanity is realizing, oh, there is a better way. There's another option. And it's uncharted territory. And man, hey, I wasn't born at the time for the moon landing. I wasn't born for, you know, exploring the new world. But I was born just in time to explore the new monetary digital world that we are a part of. And I try to stay optimistic and be like, man, hopefully this is everything I think it is, because then I know I'm like lighting the fire within myself and like, okay, I'm doing something that I can be proud of. And that when I'm an old guy, God willing, you know, with my grandchildren, they can look back and be like, man, my grandpa was a G. Like he risked it all for Bitcoin.
Or as the meme says, a fucking legend, right?
A fucking legend, exactly. I've said it before, and then I'll stop rambling. My friend started this meme. Again, Nick Can't Mine. He says, you don't stack sats for your first name, you stack sats for your last name. And I took that a little further, a little more poetic, where like, everything I do is so that my great-great-grandchildren can look at me in the oil painting above, you know, my fireplace and be like, we live a good life because my grandfather was a fucking legend and really, you know, took the risk and risked it all and changed the course of our family lineage. And I'm like, I don't know if people still think about their lineage anymore, but like I think about this constantly. And I don't have kids yet, but like I'm working towards that, where like I want to better my family line, make sure my parents and my brothers and sisters are all doing well, and further make sure that my children and their children are in a better position than I was. And it's all started because I just took that fateful decision of, you know, watching an Andreas Antonopoulos video and just becoming obsessed with Bitcoin.
You had a few references to someone that's I think important as well in the Bitcoin space that I've been influenced. In fact, well, first of all, the Nick Can't Mine meme, I didn't know it came from him because I've used that before in my own videos.
Well, originally a Dash meme, to be clear, that he repurposed to Bitcoin, but we're going to give Nick credit.
Right on. But I've used that, but also I've used a lot of the theories that have been pushed forth, whether they originated from him or not, probably not, but he's taken them and rewashed them for Bitcoin. Jeff Booth, the law of exponentiality, and applying it to Bitcoin, that people just don't realize how Bitcoin is exponentially impacting the world from individual adoption to its rivalry against fiat currency. And also that all prices are going down to zero. Jeff Booth has said that plenty of times, according to Bitcoin. And so before we go on, I do want to bring up this other post that was also from Carl Manger from Twitter. And he showed this chart that's very similar to what we were describing, where it talks about, you know, this path that we're seemingly on when it comes down to these cycles, that these peaks generally happen at the same time. It's showing the last two cycles. It's not showing the first one. But then we talk about that point afterwards. And that point afterwards is essentially 2026 sometime, early 2026, mid 2026, maybe the end of 2025. But my question for you is now, Opti, is Bitcoin going down in 2026, or because of all this adoption that we saw from the Reddit post, this institutional, this corporate, this government adoption, that will go through this potential super cycle? Do we have any reason to believe that the price action that we've been used to for the last 15 years is going to change in the sort of the time after that golden 2025 year?
Well, I wouldn't be me if I didn't meme the idea that super cycle is here. But no, I'm trolling. I'm trolling. I think we, I really want to believe in super cycle.
I was gonna spit my water out.
I really want to believe in super cycle. I think there will be a point where Bitcoin just goes up forever and breaks out of the cycle theory. But I don't think we are there yet. I think we will see one more cycle, if not two more cycles. And my fundamental idea on the cycle is just I don't think the institutions really will understand Bitcoin like we do on an ideological level. I don't think they will hold Bitcoin ideologically like we will hold it. I think once we get to some ridiculous, blow off top numbers, they will start to kind of unload their bags, and we'll see at least one more cycle, if not two more cycles. So I think we are going to see a blow off top in 2025, 2026. Also, I think there's pent up demand from the past cycle that could potentially make this go higher than we even think. But also, people are going to sell their Bitcoin. Like I'm already convinced that, yes, we will be in for one more cycle. So, 2025, once we get into the six-figure ranges, I think it'll be very important for people to not necessarily hedge their bets per se, but don't over leverage yourself at those points.
Proceed with caution.
Yeah, exactly. Like when this is another meme, and then this is what you only get through a few Bitcoin cycles. It's like when you find yourself on the internet looking at how much your wealth is worth in like Porsches and Lambos and yachts and stuff, or new land. This is when you know you are getting near the top of the cycle, is because you're like, hey man, like I'm worth way more than I ever thought. I could drive a Porsche right now. Like this could be nice. So like once you feel that in yourself, then you can start to kind of realize, okay, we might be getting a little frothy at these blow off tops. Don't over leverage myself. Make sure that I am able to withstand another 2 years of a brutal bear market, because you don't want to be a Bitcoiner that got in early and then leveraged themselves and did some risky stuff and wrecked yourself during the bear market. Like I have some horror stories of friends that basically did this on the last cycle. They're like, what, take out a loan at 50, 40K or something. And, Bitcoin's going to 100K and I'll pay this off. And, it stopped at 69K and then it got back down to, what was it, like 15K. So don't do risky things. But once you start feeling yourself go into those ideas, it's like, this is when, you got to, stack sats, stay humble, just like chill out and, just you can withstand the pain a little bit. So yes, I think we will see one more cycle, just fundamentally, because I don't think Wall Street's going to hold Bitcoin on an ideological level like we do. They're here to make their gains. And, preferably, and this is me kind of low-key trolling a little bit, like preferably Wall Street gets absolutely wrecked this cycle where, we just show that the financial manipulators of the world, basically the top echelon job of the world right now is financial manipulation on Wall Street. And I would love to see all these people that think they're incredibly intelligent and they're so much smarter than us because they made, millions on Wall Street, millions trading, basically, the Wall Street, like Wolf of Wall Street, like the Fugazi meme. It's all Fugazi, like all those people that think they're the smartest people in the world. And again, I don't wish bad will or, ill on anyone, but I would love to see their hubris just get absolutely devastated in one more cycle and humble them a little bit and be like, we have no idea what's going on. and they get wrecked. Like what would not be funnier than just seeing Wall Street get absolutely wrecked this cycle? We get another cycle, and they're like, no, super cycle's here, man, like it's going up forever. They get caught up in the Bitcoin memes, and then the cycle happens and they just get freaking destroyed. So I think we will see another cycle, potentially 2 more cycles, this one and the next one. But there will be a point where Bitcoin decouples completely from cycle theory. But I just don't think we're there yet because, you and I, we're in media. I'm sure you talk to normies every once in a while about Bitcoin. And most people just don't understand Bitcoin like we understand. And we're still considered like the idiots in the room. So I just think fundamentally people will have to kind of lick their wounds. Like they will have to put their hand on the stove. They will have to learn what Bitcoin is. They will have to understand a whole new paradigm. But I think by next cycle, it potentially super cycle is in. And one more data point. This morning, for some reason, I was searching Facebook on Wikipedia. Like, when did Facebook basically become like Facebook that we know? Like, how long have we been in this world with social media? And the date was, Facebook came out 2004, but it went public 2006. And when you think about that, it's like we've only been in a social media world for the last 18 years or something like that. So kind of correlating that same adoption chart as we see with social media, Bitcoin is still technically kind of early, if not maybe ahead of schedule there. So in 3 to 4 years, I think things can fundamentally change in people's minds about Bitcoin and where we are in this digital world. But do I think we're going to see it in the next 1 to 2 years? Like, no, I just don't think we are going to go into super cycle theory. But also, don't quote me on it, because when I'm saying super cycle on Twitter and on Simply Bitcoin, that I'm just getting caught up in the bull run. So call me out when I'm saying super cycle, because then I'll know we are getting close to the top.
Well said. And just to correct you, it did sound like that was 2006. You must be talking about when I actually adopted Facebook. Facebook IPO'd in actually 2012. That did sound kind of early.
I saw on Wikipedia, 2006 is when it went public for everyone. So
that's right, because there was a time when it was only for
like Harvard
college
students. Yeah.
Oh,
or was it Harvard?
At first it was I think Harvard. Then
Yeah.
it moved on to I think only people who had college email addresses, which
something like that. Yeah. So 2006 was when it went public for like everyone.
That's right.
And then IPO was 2012. So like realistically, we've only.
I thought you were talking about public trading. You were talking
no. Public, like for the public to public access. So again, just the numbers of like 18. Like we've only been in the world with Facebook for 18 years for like the masses to get on, and look how much Facebook or social media has changed the landscape of how we interact with each other. And Bitcoin is 15 years old. So
that's right.
It's on the same kind of timeline where in 3 to 4 years, we could be looking back at this and being like, oh, wow, like Bitcoin has, completely saturated the world. And again, going back to what you said about Jeff Booth, it's like technology is deflationary. So, things kind of go faster in tech than they do in society. And Bitcoin is a tech innovation, even though it is, a slow, clunky database, but like it is new technology in money. And once you understand the power of money and how it's, the psychological factors of money, how it's 1/2 of every transaction, like once you really kind of pragmatically and realistically look at how money affects our lives, you realize like, wow, this new money tech is going to change fundamentally everything about how we interact with each other. And we're here. We're on the front lines. We're still early. We don't know the impacts of this, but 18 years for Facebook, like today, basically from when it went public access to everyone to where we are today, it's been 18 years, and Bitcoin's been around for 15. So in 3 years, things can be radically different than where we are today. But hey, you never know. Like I'd never underestimate the evil of the state and the institutions to try to control the narrative. But I think the cat's out of the bag in the next 3 years. Basically, halfway through the next cycle, I think most people will be, I wouldn't say necessarily Bitcoin maxis, but they will have significant wealth in Bitcoin, and it's still going to be on us to continue to educate them and know and teach them what they're actually holding, and that you don't want government paper debt, and that the only real money in the world is Bitcoin. Actually, one last thing, and then we can change it. We had CJ on our show last Friday. I highly recommend. I don't know when this is coming out. It was episode 1050, I believe. We had CJ come on, and he dropped, I think, one of the best memes that I've heard in a long time. And he's like, I know you guys say Bitcoin is perfect money, it's the best money, but he's like, but I would argue that it's the world's first real money. Like, it's the first real money that we've ever had in the world. And if you don't understand how that's going to change society, like, you need to get more bullish. We are not bullish enough.
Yeah, no, CJ, I was actually on BTC Sessions show with him, and it was my first exposure to him, and I was blown away by his conviction, by his ability to deliver a message in a very aggressive but well-stated way. I mean, it was a perfect combination. So I'm definitely bullish on his growth, and I'm bullish on the things he has to say. Opti, one last question before we close it up, and I kind of want to go back to, we talked about the normies that we engage with on a regular basis. Simply Bitcoin is really positioned in an ideal, unique way to engage with normies, but at the same time be that outlet for the traditional, for the long lead Bitcoin veterans. And you have, when we tune into your show, you can see in the live stream all different types of people that we all know, the fraternity that is Bitcoin Twitter. It's a beautiful thing. But for the general audience, what needs to happen for them to be receptive to the message that comes from Simply Bitcoin, that comes from me, that comes from CJ, that essentially comes from this orange pilling of the world and refacing how we see the world, money, human rights, freedom? What needs to happen to those normies, aka general audience, aka class of 24, class of 25?
Yeah.
What needs to happen to them?
So I'm going to hit this from two angles. The first angle is like what we need to do as Bitcoiners. And then the second angle is more of like what probably needs to happen to humans for them to look for a solution. So the first part is shouts out to Sophie, Nico's wife, because she kind of internally quoted this idea of like, and she's not the only one that says it, but she did a good meme of like, we have to make Bitcoin fun, sexy, and cool. And like, we need to ensure that people understand that Bitcoin isn't just nerd money. It's not just like a internet game. Even Trump said it, like, go have fun and play with your Bitcoins or whatever, like it seems like a silly toy. And so Bitcoin, I think, fundamentally has like a branding issue right now, because I'm convinced most people on planet Earth, at least in the first world, or in the Western world, I'm pretty sure that most people has heard about Bitcoin. They've made up their minds about Bitcoin. They've been psyoped by the legacy media about what Bitcoin is. And so everyone thinks they know. What's the Mark Twain quote of The Big Short? What hurts you isn't what you know, it's what you think you know that isn't right. And so this is where I think most people have a view of what Bitcoin is. But obviously, if they really understood Bitcoin like we understood Bitcoin, then they would be Bitcoiners. Like, that's just fundamentally where we are. So I think Bitcoin has a branding issue right now, where even in my personal life, when I talk to, random strangers and people that I meet, like anytime I say Bitcoin, I get like basically two default response. Either one, like, okay, nerd, like, shut up, don't want to hear this. Or they just fundamentally, like, it goes right over their heads and they're like, whatever. It's like the Will Smith Men in Black, like laser, the white flash.
Deer in the headlights.
Yeah, it's like
they're just done. Right.
In one ear, out the other. And they're just like, okay, cool, next topic. So that's usually the pushback that I get. One, like, okay, nerd, like, don't care. Like, I don't need your internet nerd money. Stop trying to shill me on a new multi-level marketing scheme. Or it's just like it doesn't register. And so I think Bitcoin needs a rebranding of what it is. And I think it's happening in real time as we see with, the perfect storm and everything going on and all the work that all of our friends are doing to ensure that more people are waking up to Bitcoin, or, like what we're doing at Simply Bitcoin. Like we dive into a lot of doom and gloom topics. Some days you're like, some days we get off the show and like, man, like, are we really going to win? And then the next day you pop in and you're just like, the news hits and you're like, man, we're definitely going to win. So what we try to do is we really want to make our show as entertaining as possible, but jam-packed with signal. Like we fundamentally view that like our competition is not necessarily other Bitcoiners, because the Bitcoin pie is very small. Like when we think about what we can do better, we're looking at like the Joe Rogans of the world, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the like Nelk boys, Mr. Beast of the world. Like, how do we tap into those types of markets? Because that's where the attention is. So we're trying to fundamentally every single day just work on making our show the best we can, the most entertaining, the most factual and on signal as possible, and try to relate to the average person so that people come, they see our antics, Opti jacked up on coffee, Nico doing his Nico Jones thing, and we're just like losing our shit every day on the show. But it's entertaining, but it's also, it's like, edutainment, so that more people kind of get into the fray and realize like how important this Bitcoin movement is. And then on the flip side, more, again, more black pilled view here is human psychology is very interesting. And I did, so, long story, one more lore of Optimist Fields. I got a bachelor's in philosophy in college, 2008. And I wouldn't advise kids nowadays to go get a degree in philosophy, or maybe any degree at all, unless you're trying to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something that fundamentally needs a degree. But I'm very glad that I did do my bachelor's in philosophy, because it taught me how to think. I hated high school. I found philosophy in college, and it really like sparked my interest in how to learn and teach myself. And again, the do your own research and proof of work of Bitcoin is the same meme. It's like, you have a brain, use it. You can still think. If you're like, we have people in the chat that are always like, if you're watching this, like, you are the resistance. So like, use your brain. But I did do a minor in psychology. And so one of the most interesting aspects of Bitcoin is the psychological effects of money, and how that affects your life and your choices and your time preference and how you view the world. And so one of the fundamental ideas that I've been thinking on lately is humans really only work on two lanes. Like we, chase pleasure, or we avoid pain, sorry. And, you go either towards what you love, or you avoid what you hate. Like if you can boil down human dynamics into very basic first principles, or very basic just axioms that you can wrap your brains around, very complicated human behaviors, you can probably break it down to people chase pleasure and they avoid pain. And so if people really chased pleasure as much as they avoided pain, then everyone would be buying Bitcoin because of the hope of number go up and the FOMO of, I'm going to get rich, and, like 21 million Bitcoin, like it's going up forever, Laura. Like if those memes were as strong as we believe them to be, then more people would be chasing the number go up aspect of Bitcoin. But we also realize that, that can lead you down the shitcoin rabbit hole, and it really can hurt you more than it can benefit you. So I'm starting to think that for better or worse, or rather for worse, like people just have to feel the pain. People have to see, or rather people have to feel a problem in their life to seek solutions. And what we're seeing in the West is everyone is very complacent. We're fat and happy, and we are brainwashed by the legacy media. So until people start to feel that pain in their personal life, which I think we're seeing right now with all the inflation numbers, and I don't know if you've seen on normie social media, but people are complaining about inflation. You see women and men crying about they're working, more jobs than ever, and they're still not able to make ends meet. And like my grocery is like 300% more expensive than it was 2 years ago. Like, what is going on? And so people have to feel that pain before they look for the solution. Or, you know, what we're seeing in the UK this week, where like the censorship and everyone's like, what have we gotten ourselves into? I'm going to jail because of a social media post. Like, what in the world is happening? Like what kind of crazy clown world am I living in? So I think we're seeing the pain or the manifestation and the behaviors of that pain play out in real time. And, you know, for the last, ever since the lockdown, you know, we've seen people riot. We're seeing more riots. We're seeing, you know, like literal militias forming in the UK over, you know, like perceived injustices. And so people need to feel that pain, but they don't know there's a solution. And the solution is simply Bitcoin, not our show, but Bitcoin, the network that people need something to save in. Because if you are only functioning from a survival level, you know, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs type meme, like if you're only functioning on the level of survival, you're never able to get to these higher facilities of humanity because you're just trying to subsist on the basics. And so once you feel that pain of like, man, life is getting hard, like the rat race is horrible, I'm never going to get out of this dead-end job, you have two choices. You either tune out and, you know, take the soma of what was 1984, you know, like take the drugs and the nihilism and just completely numb yourself to the pain you're feeling, or you put in the work and try to find a solution. And that's what Bitcoin is. And even I told you guys my story today. Like that's what happened with me in 2016. You know, life was getting rough. Even how I created the big Optimist Fields name, I was just like, I was pissed off. I was working a job I didn't like. I was looking for solutions. I wanted to pursue some creative endeavors. Like I needed purpose, and I was feeling pain in my personal life, and, you know, bad relationships and all the pain just happening all at once. The perfect storm in my life to make me hit rock bottom. And it made me seek solutions. It made me look for alternatives. And, you know, like, I'm glad all of those things happened because I needed to feel that pain in my life to actually search for something that I can do to change my life. And I think that's just kind of human psychology. Like, people need to feel the pain. Again, as much as I don't want to wish bad on people, I think people need to feel the pain. Because only when they feel the pain, only when they know there's a problem in their life will they search for a solution. And most people are just, you know, dazed and confused right now. And they're like, everything's good and there's nothing I can do about it. So why should I look for a solution when literally everything's trash and it's all going to hell in a handbasket and there's nothing I can do? So if you have that perceived victim weakness in yourself where like, there's nothing I can do to change my life, this is my lot in life, then, you know, you can take the soma and you can plug into the Neuralinks and you can turn your brain off and become a robot or whatever they want from us, from the transhumanist out there. Or you realize like humanity has greatness within us. There, you know, human is the top predator on planet Earth because we have the extreme of greatness in us and the extreme of just like, we are the most brutal predator on planet Earth. We are the top predator on planet Earth. So there's a spectrum of who we can become. And it's always a choice. It's like, do you want to strive for something great within yourself? Or do you just want to subsist as you know, an NPC automaton that is what's Yuval Harari says, a worthless eater? Like, who do you think you are? Like, that's the question I like to ask people, is like, who do you think you are? Like, what is your perceived worth as a human? Do you think you have value as a human, or do you think you're, you know better than the beast? Like, I would argue that there's something within humanity that is divine. There is some light within us, and we can achieve greatness. It's not going to come easy. It's not going to come by someone exterior to us. Like, it's gonna manifest from within us, because, you know, I don't want to get too spiritual, but like, you have God within you. Like, you are a child of the light here. There is goodness in you, but you have to pamper it. You have to work on it. And you have to become the person that you've always wanted to be. You're not just born that way, especially men. You know, women, we could argue, are just born that way. You know, they're beautiful and they're just born with their gifts. Men, we have to create them. And I think that's what we have right now. We have a generation of young military fighting age males that have no goals, that have no purpose. And we need to instill some kind of purpose and hope for greatness within themselves so that we can actually change humanity. And I think that's what we're all trying to do here within ourselves and within our spheres of influence.
Opti, I hope that whomever is watching this show is not just hearing, but they're listening to the words that you're saying, because I know someone out there, whether it's next week when this is published, whether it's a year from now, they're going to watch this and it's going to impact their life. And so there's a reason why you're out there spreading that good news of what Bitcoin is and how it's impacted you. And you can't help but share that in hopes that some other people will listen. So I thank you for your courage. I thank you for.
All right. Can I chime in one last time and then you can wrap this up? Many of the things that I say, first of all, I've made all of the mistakes in Bitcoin, and I'm still surprised that I'm here in this position today and people listen to me. But so I'm always kind of angling my message as like, look, you can believe what I believe, and you can take the experience that I've gone through and learn from that, or you can make the mistakes for yourself. But I'm trying to accelerate other people's learning curve here, because I've made all the mistakes. And you know, there's a saying, it's like, what is it? Smart people learn from their mistakes, and wise people learn from others' mistakes. And so I've made all the mistakes. And this is why I try to instill that into the new coiners, the new Bitcoiners, because like, you can listen to me, you can think I'm an idiot, or you can just take it as someone that's been through the experience. And then further to the point that you just said, a lot of the things that I say is just things that I wish I heard when I was 18. Like I'm constantly just talking to myself as a younger version and be like, yo, you know, I wish I heard this earlier in my life, because things would be fundamentally different. So I'm out here just saying what I believe to be the best advice that I could give to anyone that's in a similar position as I was, or that is in that position now and looking for change. Like this is why I do it. It's like I'm talking to 18-year-old Opti and being like, look, bro, like it's going to get better. It's not going to get easier, but it's going to get better. And all you got to do is, you know, stack sats, stay humble, live below your means, look to the future in optimism and hope, and you know, try to avoid the mines that are laid out for you, because there is a trap out there and they don't want you to succeed. But hey, I want you to succeed. So stack sats, stay humble. This is the way.
Dear 18-year-old me, buy Bitcoin. Opti, I thank you for coming on my show. You're a great friend. I look forward to when I get to hang out with you more. Take care.
Peace out, bro.
So that was Optimist Fields, co-host of Simply Bitcoin. Again, one of my favorite shows. I've been on a few times. It's a privilege to be friends with Nico, Opti, Rustin. They shared these narratives. They share this news that's so important, that's being censored, essentially censored by the mainstream media. And Nico even says, like, hey, they're the legacy media. We're the mainstream media now. And it's my goal to propagate that message the best I can with this podcast, with the other shows that I do. And I'm just following the footsteps of my friends. So I thank Opti, and I look forward to seeing him again. I'm Sir Ulric, like my father before me. Tune in next week when we have another brilliant Bitcoin guest.